Hi everyone and welcome back to RSB One Stop. In this video, we will take a look at the evolution of Android, from its beginnings. While Android 14 is right around the corner, it was originally scheduled to be released in August. However, the recent release of Android 14 Beta 5 and 5.1 confirms that the release has been pushed to September. Let's now take a look at Android history from its initial stages. Android was initially developed by the founders of Android Incorporated, which was established by Andy Rubin, Rich Miner, Nick Sears, and Chris White. Initially, it was intended for digital cameras, but they later realized that the market for digital camera operating systems wasn't all that big. Android Incorporated then shifted its attention toward smartphones. The development of Android started in 2003 by Android Incorporated, but it was later acquired by Google in 2005. There were at least 2 internal releases of Android within Google before the beta version was released. The first beta version of Android was released on November 5, while the software development kit was released on November 12, 2007. Several public beta versions of the SDK were released. These releases were done through software emulation as physical devices did not exist to test the operating system. Both the operating system itself and the SDK were released along with their source code, as free and open-source software under the Apache license. The first public release of Android 1.0 debuted with the release of the T-Mobile G1, also known as HTC Dream, in October 2008. Android 1.0 and 1.1 were not released under specific code names. The codenames, Astro Boy and Bender, were tagged internally on some of the early pre-1.0 milestone builds, but they were never used as the actual codenames of the 1.0 and 1.1 releases of the OS. Then project manager Ryan Gibson conceived using a confectionery-themed naming scheme for public releases, starting with Android 1.5 Cupcake and continuing until Android version 9. From Android version 10, Google stopped giving dessert names to Android versions. Let's now look at each version of Android and the features that were introduced with each version. Android 1.5 Cupcake introduced the ability to install apps from outside the Google Play Store. Android 1.6 Donut added support for landscape mode and improved the performance of the operating system. Android 2.0 Eclair introduced the notification bar, the ability to create widgets, and support for multiple cameras. Android 2.2 Froyo improved the performance of the operating system and added support for Bluetooth 3.0. Android 2.3 Gingerbread introduced the new user interface design, the ability to record and playback video, and support for near-field communication (NFC). Android 3.0 Honeycomb, designed specifically for tablets, Honeycomb introduced a new user interface with larger icons and more space for apps. Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich unified the user interface for phones and tablets, and introduced new features such as the lock screen and the ability to customize the home screen. Android 4.1 to 4.3 Android Jelly Bean introduced a number of new features and improvements, such as a new user interface, improved performance and stability, and enhanced support for near-field communication (NFC). Android 4.4 KitKat improved the performance of the operating system and introduced new features such as material design, and the ability to use fingerprint sensors to unlock devices. Android 5.0 Lollipop introduced a new user interface design with flatter colors and animations, and added new features such as notification channels and doze mode. Android 6.0 Marshmallow improved the permission system and introduced new features such as now on tap and doze mode. Android 7.0 Nougat introduced split-screen multitasking, a new notification system, and improved performance. Android 8.0 Oreo introduced picture-in-picture mode, notification snoozing, and a new autofill service. Android 9 Pie introduced a new gesture-based navigation system, improved privacy features, and a new system-wide dark mode. Android 10 dropped the dessert names and focused on improving the overall user experience. Introduced new features such as live caption, improved notification management, and better privacy controls. Android 11 introduced new features such as one-time permissions, improved notification management, and better privacy controls. Android 12 introduced a new design language called Material U, which allows users to customize the look and feel of the operating system. Also introduced new features such as privacy dashboard, improved notification management, and better performance. Android 13, incremental update with some refinements to Material U, introduces per-app language preferences and some additional security improvements. Let's have a look at the major overhaul versions of Android. Android 3.0 Honeycomb, designed specifically for tablets. Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich, unified the user interface for phones and tablets. Android 5.0 Lollipop, introduced a new user interface design. Android 7.0 Nougat, introduced split-screen multitasking. Android 9.0 Pie, introduced a new gesture-based navigation system. Android 12, introduced a new design language called Material U. Apart from the above, Google also replaced the Dalvik runtime environment with ART, Android Runtime, which was released as a preview in Android 4.4 KitKat, and completely made default it in Android version 5.0 to address the limitations of the Dalvik runtime, and to meet the demands of Android devices, which are becoming more powerful year after year. Dalvik used to have a just-in-time, JIT, compiler, while ART uses an ahead-of-time, AOT, compiler. This means that ART compiles the app's bytecode into machine code during installation, while Dalvik does the same thing only when an app is started. ART uses less memory, has faster startup times, and is more secure than Dalvik. It has been improved since then along with each iteration of Android. The first Android device I ever had was the Sony Ericsson W8 with Android version Eclair 2.1, which used to last 4 hours with 4 hours of charging at best. Later I have bought different Sony devices, such as the Xperia L, M4, and finally Z2, before switching to other brands and currently using the Pixel 7 Pro. Android has evolved a long way from its initial days and has just started to compete with other skins, but Google's take on Android is good at some things, but restrictive in certain simple things, such as removing the search box at the bottom, at a glance, pane management, and a few more. Overall, I hope it is heading in the right direction, shrinking the gap and competing with other best skins around, along with improved security and data privacy. What was your first Android device and what Android version did it have initially? And also share your thoughts about the video. That's all for the video. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more videos.